Hello, everybody, and welcome to our latest Master Your Marketing webinar series. My name is Kate. I'm the Content Marketing Manager for Main Street ROI. We're really excited to be presenting today. We have Elliot Moore joining us from AdRoll, presenting on connecting online data to create high-performing digital campaigns. The Master Your Marketing series is presented by all of our partners, Optimizer, Active Demand, AdRoll, Campaigner, SpyFu, and Main Street ROI, joining together to bring you tips on how to grow your business through digital marketing. Today's webinar will have about 40-45 minutes of presented content, and then afterwards we'll hang on for a live Q&A to follow up with any questions that you've had. So if you think of questions along the way, feel free to type them into your question and answer box, and we'll get to them at the end of the webinar. We will be recording today's presentation, so we'll send out a video replay along with a PDF to the slides so that you can review any of the information that you see today during the presentation. And with that, I will hand this over to Elliot to get started. Thanks, everybody.
All right, thanks so much, Kate. As Kate said, my name is Elliot Moore, and I'll be discussing how you can connect your data to ensure for marketing success. So just to give a quick background on myself, my name is Elliot Moore. I'm the North American Marketing Manager here at AdRoll. So what that means is I help oversee the campaigns that really drive the demand gen efforts for our business. What we're discussing today is the difference between data types and how you can connect each of those data types, as well as how you can target data groups and really scale that performance. We'll end it with how you can track and measure the success of your marketing campaigns. And then from there, if you guys have any questions, you can go ahead and ask those at that time, or you can ask them throughout the entire presentation, and we'll try to get to them at the end. So to begin here, we're going to give a background on the different data types. So before we dive into that, I want to discuss why is this so important. And it really kind of backs into, why connecting your data is something that's important for every marketing campaign. So if you can see here, if you have disconnected data across all of your different channels, it's really hard to get a full sense of your customer's journey through the sales process, right? Because you're not able to track them wherever they might be engaging with your marketing content online. You might see them, in some of your display marketing efforts, but you won't see them across email, or you might not see them across mobile, and it's really hard to get a sense of what's actually driving ROI. In that sense, it's also hard to personalize your campaigns, because you're not able to understand where they might be in the sales process, because you're not really backing that into the full customer sales journey, which will in the end mean that you're going to have to manually try to link all of these together, which, as I'm sure many of you know, can be incredibly time consuming and also incredibly hard to do. So the goal of this, everything here, is really to make sure that everything is unified together, so that you're collecting all of your data in one place, you're unifying it across the customer path to conversion, so that you can personalize campaigns, really convert more users into customers for your company, and then really orchestrate that all together so that you can continue to optimize your campaigns and really drive that ROI that you want to see. So now let's move into the different types of data. So the types that I'll be discussing today are first-party data, second-party, and third-party data. And we'll dive into these in a little bit more detail. But I think the main thing that you want to see here is that first-party data, which I'll discuss, is something that you're going to want to use for campaigns that are more targeted to individual users, where you either know the audience or have the audience coming to you and can really personalize that. Where third-party data, it might not have that personalization, but allows you to really scale your campaigns and reach as large an audience as possible. And that's really great for things like branding efforts or whatever it may be. So this isn't to say, one necessary type of data is better than the other. It really depends on the campaign, but there are pluses and minuses depending on which type of data that which type of marketing campaign that you really want to run. So we'll start out here by discussing first-party data. First-party data is essentially just the data that you own. So that would mean, customers that have come to your site, whether you're tracking them on a pixel anyone who might have entered in email into your website list, a list of people who have come to an event that you've had, whatever that might be. It's not data that you're getting from anyone else. It's actually data that you're collecting. And because you're collecting it, that's what really adds to the personalization and really helps benefit the intent and the scale of these different campaigns. So we're going to dive a little bit deeper into first-party data and discuss some of the different strategies that had been laid out on the previous slide. So the first would be a URL-based segmentation strategy for the data. And this URL-based segmentation simply means that the data is capturing your audience based on a specific URL that they might be visiting. So for example, for some of our campaigns, we'll organize them based on whether someone's going to AdRoll.com/pricing, and then we'll create marketing campaigns that target people based on whatever their pricing needs may be. So this type of segmentation strategy really helps you personalize based on, say you have an individual product, you can target them with that product again, or an individual action you want to take. You can really use this segmentation strategy to do that. Another is event-based segmentation. And this is designed on people who have taken an individual action on your site. So this isn't talking about, event offline that you held, in a hotel somewhere or at a dinner or anything like that. This actually means an individual action that they've taken on your site. So this would primarily be, if they've filled out a lead form, if they've clicked into a shopping cart but they haven't converted, basically anything like that. It's them taking an action on your site. So that's really where this strategy comes from, and it's especially great for campaigns like that cart abandonment, because you'll know that how far they came through the sales journey, and you'll be able to tailor your campaigns to help really close them and make them a customer again. Next is frequency-based segmentation strategy for first-party data. And this one is pretty simple. It simply means the amount of times that they've either taken an action or viewed a page. So for us, we'll typically do, if someone has viewed 5+ pages, then we tend to think that they're a pretty high intent or high interest customer in our product, and we'll tend to target them with advertising a little bit differently than someone who came once and left immediately. Simultaneously, this could be a segmentation strategy where you dictate how many times they see your advertising, so that you can know, okay, if they viewed 5+ pages, we want to serve them, 10 impressions over a week-long period. These are all hypothetical numbers, of course. But if they've only came once and bounced again immediately, we're not going to necessarily serve them as many ads. So this type of segmentation for first-party data really goes back into how often you want them to see the advertising, or how often, just in general, that they've interacted with your brand. Next, we have, so typo at the top, sorry, this is actually CRM or email list segmentation. This type of data is going to come from the emails that people have entered into your site. So if you have a form fill on your site, a sign up for a newsletter, or a login where they give their email, this is where that data is going to come from. And what typically do is you'll integrate that with a CRM vendor like a Marketo or Salesforce, and help create campaigns that way. CRM-based segmentation is great for the campaigns for current customers, and we'll actually dive into that a little bit deeper. But this is great for people because this is a very high intent segment, because they're willing to give you information that they not necessarily would have otherwise given you. So this is a great, very high intent segmentation for first party data. So that was first party data primarily. Moving on here to second party data. Second party data is a little bit different. So for companies that have massive data pools, basically information about the people that use their product. I know this has been in the news a lot recently, but there'll be like a Facebook or a Google. What they can do is utilize this party data to supplement some of their marketing strategies. So for instance, they'll be able to look at someone who's come onto their site and then identify other customers within one of those really large data pools who exhibit the same actions online as that original customer, and then they'll be able to help use that information to either refine the targeting for the original customer, or to help reach out to those new customers from that data pool to bring them in. So it's really a supplemental targeting strategy that some of the bigger companies with their bigger data pools can use. And then last, we have third-party data, and this is data that you can get typically from an ad network exchange, whatever it might be. It's not data that you own, but it's data that you get from other companies to help influence your campaigns, whether you're buying that for them or you're accessing, into that itself. This again helps unlock larger audiences for you to target your campaigns to. However, it is also much less personalized because you're not necessarily knowing whether or not that person is interested in your product or would be interested in whatever you might be selling. The big thing here that I also wanted to cover is there's a lot of different types of data and a lot of different ways you can use that. One way to help make this simpler is by using a programmatic vendor or someone who does programmatic advertising to really help you target and segment those audiences based on all of the different data types that I had covered in the past, and they'll really be able to help you optimize your campaigns to help meet your goals based on whatever type of data that you might be using at that time. So you can see here, just to kind of hammer the point home, they can take your data and aim it towards the strategies for growth. They're really giving you a single customer view, so that you would be taking all of your data, putting it into that programmatic vendor, and then they would be sending it out into the different display, mobile, native web, social media, email, networks and exchanges out there to access those, whatever they may be. And really optimizing those on your behalf. That kind of takes some of that work into self-management and self-optimization out of your hands and to try to clear up your plate. So from here, I wanted to move into, now that we know where you can get these different types of data from, whether it's from how many times they've viewed your site or from CRM email or whatever it might be, I wanted to dive into some strategies you can use to help target that audience data, whether it's first, second, or third party. So one of the first, I think, is also the most well-known, and it's definitely one that we come in contact with a lot here at AdRoll, would be SEO and PPC campaigns. So these are obviously a little bit different. SEO would be how you optimize your site to be able to rank higher within search networks, whether that be Google or Bing or whatever it might be. SEO simply means that your site is sending out signals to whatever those search vendors are, and then those signals would have the intent to tell that search vendor to rank you higher in the site. So SEO is a tactic to help really make sure that you're optimizing your site to be ranked as high as possible. And this can be also an organic campaign, meaning that you're not necessarily putting money behind it. You're just trying to pull all the levers necessary to make sure that you're ranking as high as possible. Next, we have PPC, which stands for pay-per-click. Pay-per-click simply means you're going to be advertising on a search engine, and it will list your ad at the top or the side of a search result every time. The pay-per-click part comes pretty simply from if someone clicks on your search result, you're going to have to pay. It's a really simple payment model, not necessarily the best, however, because these campaigns can really only target people who are searching directly for your product. So these really are the best campaigns for audiences who are already either aware of you or definitely in the market for you, but not necessarily the best for you to grow your audience base and attain new customers. The next strategy I want to talk about is retargeting. Retargeting is delivering personalized content to people who have already visited your site. So as I like to say, if if you're a Levi's or another brand, someone comes to your site, they look at a pair of jeans, they don't buy them, but then they see an ad for those same pair of jeans, online again, as they're searching the web, that would be retargeting. They're getting retargeted with that product that they might not necessarily have bought before. Retargeting is a very wide strategy. It can be either on desktop or mobile. It can also go across standard websites, like the New York Times or ESPN or whatever might have remnant ad space, but it can also go into social media like Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, and it can also go onto mobile devices. This means cell phones, tablets, and even now starting to be smart TVs are starting to have this type of targeting. Really spans the gamut here and runs across all different devices and all different platforms and channels. The next thing I want to talk about is prospecting. And prospecting really is a campaign that ties most into that second party bucket that I had discussed before. Prospecting allows marketers to target new audiences of users and drive them to your site. The good thing about this tactic is prospecting aims to find users who exhibit the same behavior as your current customers online and then drive them to your site. And the thought behind that is, okay, if they're taking the same actions online as your current customers, then they're probably going to be likely, at least, the same audience base that would also be interested in your product and definitely the one that you would want to target. So, diving into a little bit deeper, it analyzes the intent data that your customers are already showing on your site. It identifies the behavior that they're doing online, then it scours those millions of user profiles and some of those second-party data pools, and it finds users who do that same online behavior and do that, show the same intent, and then it drives them back to your site with the hope that it can really fill up your audience and make it, expand it and make it bigger. Lastly, we have dynamic email campaigns. So dynamic emails send customers personalized content based on your site behavior. So unlike typical email campaigns that would maybe mass send a list, the exact same content, the content within dynamic email campaigns target customers with the actions that they actually take online. So an example of this would be if you were to go to a site and look at a few products or check out a few web pages but not take a desired conversion action. This dynamic email would take account of that, notice it, send you an email that directly ties to whatever actions you're taking on that site, whether it be that product viewed or the web pages viewed, with the hope that that extra personalization would remind you to come back to the site and complete a desired conversion action. These are great for loyalty campaigns and upsell, cross-sell opportunities. If you already have current customers on your site who have bought a product multiple times within the past 6 months, you can group them all into an audience segment and you can send them an email reminding them of maybe a new product you released or a sale that you might have, whatever it might be, to help drive their business back to you again. These are also great for discounts for return customers as well, which is something that we've noticed has been really successful during the holidays for many customers online. Last thing I wanted to note here is that dynamic emails usually see open rates of 50 to 60% and click-through rates of 10 to 20. This is a really high stat for anyone that runs email campaigns. I'm sure you can attest this is much higher than normally seen. So this is a great way to really interact with customers online based specifically on the actions that they've taken. So that was a quick run through of the different strategies that we had. What I wanted to discuss here, because I think this is incredibly important, is also how you can measure the success of the campaigns that you're running using these different types of data. I think measurement is the most important part of running a marketing campaign because you never really know if your money is, going into the right buckets, or if it's actually driving your ROI for your business, unless you're, making sure that you're identifying how you're going to measure your campaign success from the onset of your campaigns. So to start here, we have four different common goals. One would be the bottom line. These would be campaigns that would ultimately affect the bottom line of your business, drive sales, and grow that customer base. The second one is retention upsell. These are campaigns that you have to retain your customers. As we know, retaining a customer is a lot cheaper than finding a new one, so these are incredibly important for making sure that you obtain, a continual rate of revenue throughout the year. There's also efficiency, which is essentially, you might be driving those sales, but how efficiently are you doing it? Are you doing it by spending a ton of money, or are you doing it by splitting your money up through a bunch of different channels? That's really important. And then also engagement, just how often people engage with your different advertisements. So to start here, we have bottom line. Again, this is how often the campaigns that you're running are actually driving these sales. So you're really going to want to look at ARPA here, the average revenue you're getting per account or per sale that you close, your total number of closed deals, and then also a little bit of that customer LTV, because that definitely plays into how much that you can spend later on in different campaigns. We also have our retention and upsell metric. So it's really important to look at here how often your customers churning, whether you're a subscription-based or, multiple product offering company, it's really important to see how often customers are churning, why they're churning, and then try to serve those ads to make sure that that doesn't happen. You also want to look at the length of account activity, which can help you determine how often you have to hit them with those advertisements during their time with your business to make sure that they stay a client. And then obviously upsells per account, which are a great way to grow your average revenue and make sure that people are invested in your product and stay a client for a long time. We have efficiency here too. These metrics are aiming to help marketers understand whether or not their money they're putting behind their campaigns is being used efficiently. So what you want to look at here is essentially the costs per action taken on a lot of these different things. So it'll be the cost you're spending per new account or new sale made, the cost per action taken, which could be filling out a lead form or giving your email, the cost per click you have on advertisements, and then obviously the return on investment, which is probably the most important metric here, because even if cost per action or click or new account are high, if your ROI on those high actions is also incredibly high, then that's definitely an efficient campaign and something that's worth your time. Lastly here, we have engagement metrics. So these would things like clicks to ads, content downloads, account signups, and sales meetings secured. I think these are great metrics and something that can help you, figure out which campaigns are really are vibing with the audience that you're trying to actually target. I will say though that these metrics are not necessarily as important to your marketing campaigns as some of the other ones. One thing that we've noticed here in a lot of different campaigns is that people will tend to focus on, how many impressions are I'm serving, how many people have clicked on the individual ads and things like that, and those are important. But at the end of the day, an impression served and a click to an ad isn't necessarily driving new business for your company. So it's really important to take some of these with a grain of salt and just say, okay, it's great that we drove those impressions, but how many of them actually closed into new business, or how many of them actually drove that extra sale that we wanted? Because those are the things that at the end of the day really matter. So even if something necessarily didn't have a ton of impressions, if it had a close rate, astronomical close rate of 40% or something, that would be a great campaign and something that you can, once you continue to run or scale, because it actually affected how much revenue your business was seeing. I know I ran through that quickly. If you have any questions, I think we can move it into the Q&A now.
Okay, thanks, Elliot. There are a couple of questions that have come through. So a question earlier in the presentation that came in from Jeffrey asked, what user data are you using to target, say based on how many pages someone visited, IP, just kind of focusing more on specifically what user data?
Yeah, so for that first party section, when you're looking at how many pages someone visited, that's going to be based off of pixeling technology. A pixel is simply just short lines of JavaScript code that's placed right before the end body tag on your site. It might sound technical, it's actually pretty quick. Anyone who manages whatever page you might have will be able to do it in 5 minutes, whatever it may take. This pixel will track wherever that site visitor goes online, and that tracking system will help determine the frequency of the pages they're visiting and specifically what pages they're visiting, and that will be the data that you can use, and then kind of segment out your audience to see, okay, this group viewed 1 page or less and this group viewed 5 pages or more, so we'll be able to target them differently based on that.
Got it, thank you. The next question that we have came in from Elizabeth, and she said, do you use these same strategies for your B2B clients? How do the strategies differ for a business selling something like software and data consulting services versus a B2C business selling something like musical instruments?
Yeah, so we do use this technology. I used to work on the B2B team. I actually now focus mostly on e-commerce, so I'm a little bit removed from this, to be honest with you. I think one of the great strategies for B2B clients would be focused more on ABM, which is account-based marketing, and making sure that you're targeting specific accounts. We actually have a product on our Rollworks side that specifically does ABM in general, but yeah, these tactics should work no matter what the client or the industry is, because it really comes down to the personalization that you have between the campaigns. I know that for B2B clients, the sales cycle can be a bit longer. So what we tended to really focus on there was how often we were serving them their ads and how much they were engaging with those different advertisements to make sure that we could optimize that frequency throughout their sales cycle and get them to actually set a meeting with us or have an appointment, whatever it may be.
All right, thank you. Our next question comes in from Susan, and she said, she asked, how can marketers account for revenue generation after leads are passed to sales?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that one more time?
Absolutely. She said, how can marketers account for revenue generation after leads are passed to sales, so after they're passed over to the sales team?
Right. So we have an internal tracking system for that, which will note, basically it will look back at how much revenue they've spent on a 30, 60, or 90-day scale. This also ties back into the pixel that's placed on the actual client. What that pixel does is it drops a cookie on them and tracks whatever interactions they have with our business throughout their duration with the client, and then we'll also track that within our internal CRM system. And we can marry those two together to see, okay, this client within the past 90 days has downloaded a white paper, attended a webinar, gone to a marketing event, and has also spent X amount of money with us, and then we will use that to figure out the ROI of our campaigns and how much revenue our efforts are actually generating.
Okay, thank you. And the next question comes in from Denise, and I believe, okay, so she said, do you know how Floodlight Tags track view through conversions since it is placed on the site and not the ad?
Sorry, how what tags?
Floodlight Tags?
I'm not actually familiar with that. how they track views instead of conversions. If it's back to that pixeling technology, anytime an ad is placed in front of a consumer, it will track that as an impression served, even if it's not on your site, because it's following them based on that cookie technology. Part of this also goes back into the visibility of the ad on the page. So I know for something like an example, like a social media like Instagram, I think it needs to be like 50% viewable for 1 to 2 seconds, something like that, and then it counts as an impression, and if that doesn't happen, then it doesn't count. But the pixel would track all of that internally.
Okay, thank you. This next question comes in from Lannis and wants to know, does this work when quote unquote selling education for universities and colleges?
Yep. So we do a ton of different campaigns that are lead gen focused for education clients. This is a perfect way to kind of go back to what I discussed before with the event-based segmentation for the first-party data. So what we've done in the past is kind of targeted whether or not someone has gone to an admissions site or filled out a request more information page. What you can do is you can segment out the audiences that have done that and target them with more information about your university. And I know the big thing here is to get people to apply or to attend an on-campus event. This is something that you can track as well, just internally within the system. But for those lead gen specific campaigns where it might not necessarily be tied to a revenue goal, I would probably look more at what event or action they're taking on your site, and then create a campaign that has ads with messaging in it tailored specifically to that, whether that's filling out an application, completing application, or just requesting more information about whatever the educational system might be.
Got it, thank you. Our next question comes from Eddie, and he asked, once you collect online data from different sources, how do you centralize your reporting from different platforms? Yeah,
so what we do internally with AdRoll and what a lot of different companies use is just we have one centralized dashboard which takes the reporting across every channel and every platform and melds it together in one place. What that does, it gives a really easy, direct view of the impact that your ads are having, regardless of whatever platform they might be on. A lot of other ad targeting companies do this. For example, like a Google Analytics doesn't necessarily look outside of Google, but it does have that reporting in it, centralized in one place. So what you want to do is maybe if you're having trouble looking at that, marrying of data across platforms, is look into some vendors who can help you pull all that together in one place and give you one holistic look that's not reliant on the individual platform that the ad is served on.
Thank you. Lisa asked, I think kind of as a follow-up to that, do you mind mentioning what software you use for the dashboard to look across all your data sources?
We use our own technology.
So is that something that AdRoll provides that as part of the service from AdRoll?
Yep, that's
or
part
is that
of
something that is put together internally?
No, that's part of a service from AdRoll. Is we have a client-facing dashboard that you can log into yourself. You can create campaigns, optimize campaigns, upload ads, edit ads, whatever it may be, directly within that dashboard. And then what you'll be able to do in there is you'll be able to segment out each campaign and even each ad to see how it's performing across the different channels here. I think what's important to remember about this reporting dashboard is sometimes it's not as important to note, individually which channel is performing the best for a different ad unit, because these ads, especially for our dash, are following customers wherever they go online, right? So, the best part about it is that it's not confined just to a Facebook or not confined just to a Google, but that it can genuinely go anywhere. So it's better to see here, okay, you know, which types of customers are the ones that are converting the most, are performing the best, almost regardless of where they go online, because that will be where you find, you know, your true target audience and the ones that are going to help you grow your business and convert and give you the most conversions.
Got it. Thank you. Let's see. Rachel wants to know, and I guess you can speak to whether or not this is also something. She said, what companies or programs do you use for prospecting?
Yeah, so we currently, AdRoll has a prospecting product internally, so we also use that as well. As I had discussed before with that second party data, we have a large data pool of over 1.2 billion digital user profiles. So what we do is we look at both our internal data and the data of whatever client we may have. We'll see, you know, what actions those, you know, the audience for that client are taking online, and then we'll look into that huge data pool of digital users. We'll find that new audience that basically executes the same, takes the same actions online as our client's current audience, and then we'll help drive them there. So we use our own. I think the one thing I forgot to note about prospecting is really the best part about it, besides growing your audience, is that it also helps to fuel your other marketing efforts, right? So if you're prospecting these new users and bringing them to your site, they would also automatically, by default, be cookied by the pixel and then enter into a retargeting campaign. It would also help ensure that a larger audience would be seeing any form fill actions that might be on your site, so any forms you want filled out, and it would also help get more eyes in front of any email captures that you might have. So really the best thing about that is it helps also fuel your other marketing efforts, which can really help your other marketing campaigns, in addition to just simply growing your audience space.
Okay, thank you. A question coming in from Jeffrey, who said, will deleting cookies in your browser completely delete tracking ability? What percentage of internet users delete their cookies regularly, or conversely, what percentage can be tracked regularly?
Yeah, almost. I mean, I can't really speak to the percentages of who does that online. I just simply don't know. We found that is not really a problem. I mean, you noticed in Safari now on mobile, they have this thing where you have to, you know, accept that if you go to a certain site, you might be tracked by cookies. It's actually something that you have to click, and I know they're doing a lot of this in the EU now with their new online marketing measures. This simply hasn't really affected any advertising ability online yet. It's something that most people don't even think about. They just take that action, and frankly, a lot of people don't really even think about their cooking online as well. Most people don't take that action to clear their cookies because it also means they'll have to do things like re-sign into Facebook every time, or re-sign into their Amazon account or their Hulu account or whatever it might be. So it's simply not an action that a lot of people will take because it creates some of those extra steps that they usually don't have to think about.
Yes, I feel like I'm definitely guilty of that, never doing it because it's way more convenient to have it there. Yeah. Denise asked, kind of going back to the tracking, she said, if different platforms track the same metrics differently, how do you recommend choosing which platform's metrics to look at?
Yeah, that's always a really tough one, honestly, identifying what your source of truth will be. I think it's really looking, I think that's more something that would internally be something that maybe your team would decide. I know it's important to look across, you know, if you have multiple different platforms tracking, to look across them and try to understand, you know, how some of those metrics are backing into some of the actual sales that are being made and some of the actual revenue that's being driven to your site, because that will really help you know whether or not metrics from one platform versus another are more accurate for your business. But I mean, sometimes they can vary across devices or across different platforms, so it's hard to tell. The AdRoll one specifically is tied to that pixel and that cookie, so it will actually be tracking their physical actions online. So that one's usually pretty on the nose. But I know for some of the other ones, it's more testing, kind of trial and error.
That makes sense. Well, that goes through the questions that we have left so far. So thank you, Elliot, for taking the time to present all of this information and to answer the questions. We really appreciate it. And I want to thank everybody for joining us again in our latest Master Your Marketing webinar. We'll have another one coming up next month. And again, we'll be sending out a replay of this presentation along with a PDF of the slides. So you should receive that within about 24 hours. And then Elliot, I believe that this was on here, but if anyone has follow-up questions, what is the best way for them to reach you?
Yep, if you just tweet out at AdRoll, then you can reach me pretty seamlessly. I have people on my team who can get to me. You can also reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm Elliot Moore, working for AdRoll, or email. I'm just elliot@adroll.com.
Perfect. That sounds great. Well, thank you very much again, Elliot. We appreciate it. And thank you all for joining us. We hope you enjoy the rest of your day, and just around the corner to Friday, so the weekend to come as well. All right. Thanks, Elliot.
Thanks.